A little while ago, when Nintendo announced the pricing for the Switch 2 and its games for launch, they also dropped the announcement for what they were calling the Switch 2 Welcome Tour. This was a weird little extra game that looked pretty interesting to me, but when it was announced that it was a full purchased game that you had to get online through the eShop, there was a bit of outrage. For a guy like me, it looked like a good time and a great way to learn about what Nintendo had been cooking up with the new system. But this game really does scream pack-in title, and it gives a similar impression to things like Wii Sports or the PS5's Astro Playroom. But like I said, Nintendo had something else in mind and set the game out on the eShop for $15 Canadian or $10 US. Cue the masses online being incredibly upset about the prices for a lot of the other games, and Welcome Tour felt like just the cherry on top. But I'm usually the kind of guy to play devil's advocate in these situations, and I was curious to see what the game was actually like. It seems pretty obvious that releasing this game with the Switch 2 would have been an easy win for them, but I also thought it looked like a cool game to set off the brand new system, sort of like Snipper Clips was for me on the original Switch. So when the Switch 2 released, I had to check this thing out for myself and see if this outrage was justified. I threw Nintendo a few extra bucks, and now I've played Welcome Tour front to back. So today I thought I'd make a short little video going over my thoughts on this sort of interesting experience that they've put out. Without too much dawdling on it, let's get right into Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Right from the start of the game, it's obvious that Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. It's a tour. After cycling through 1,000 avatars trying to find one that I liked, I got led into the first area set on the left Joy-Con 2. I really struggled to call Switch 2 Welcome Tour a game, really, since it's immediately obvious that it's a digital museum with some interactive elements. Every area in the game is set on a giant scale version of the Switch 2's components, divided into these areas, and every part of the Switch is explained in painstaking detail. You'll be walking from these giant structures of Joy-Cons or the Switch screen, but even other stuff like the Joy-Con wheels or the camera. There's really just 4 main things to do here. You can look for stamps which label every aspect of the object you're exploring. You can learn how they were designed and then do some quizzes about it. You can test some demos at these kiosks, which are short activities that show off some major feature, or play these mini-games, which are often these challenges that have more direct objectives to them and typically come in multiple difficulties. Collecting all the stamps will give you access to the following area, and doing demos and minigames earn medals which unlock more difficulties for other minigames. As far as I can tell, a lot of the game is entirely optional, and you really only need the stamps in order to proceed. Since this game is so new, I don't want to go too far into spoiling everything, but the best thing I think I can do here is explain that after playing the entire game, I actually kinda liked it. This thing's actually kinda cool. Welcome Tour isn't some mind-blowing experience, but I would be lying to you if I said I didn't have a good time. If you want me to explain why you shouldn't buy this thing, you can skip ahead a little bit or just find a more angry video. For starters, this game is much bigger than I expected. From the beginning, it's safe to assume that the whole game is just 2 Joy-Con, a Switch screen, and maybe the dock, but Area A will go on to B, C, D, all the way past G and H. And you really get to know the thought processes behind what and why every little detail of the Switch 2 was made. Even if some of the trivia is pretty rudimentary, some of the fun facts are really interesting if you even care just a little bit about how video game consoles are designed and manufactured. It's not flashy or exciting, but I don't think it needs to be if you're genuinely engaging with the material. I kinda just like going to museums personally, and this game is basically like that. Gaming is a hobby of mine, and learning about my hobby is fun. If you like going to museums and you like video games, I don't see why this wouldn't be a good time for you. Reading about the finer details of the Switch 2 was probably my favorite part of the tour, but the demos are really fun too. They're actually somewhat few and far between, but anytime I got to a new area, I was looking forward to the fun little sections that you're allowed to mess around with. A lot of them reminded me of the Wii Play minigames from back in the day, where they don't have much to them, but they're fun enough to explain what's cool about a certain feature. They also work well as a way to cap off whatever section you're in before you move on to another area. One of the NPCs here mentioned that the UFO minigame was created because the developers liked bullet barrage games, which I have to assume is a euphemism for bullet hells. And something like that makes Welcome Tour feel much more like a little extra thing the developers made for fans, instead of some overly produced corporate product. I really enjoyed the ever-present sense that this game just wants you to like the Switch 2 as much as Nintendo and the people that work there seem to. Everybody you talk to in the game is excited and curious about the things the system does, and it gave me a similar feeling about it too. I got excited about the most inane stuff, like how they put little rubber nibs on the Joy-Con attachments so that the rumble didn't make noises, or that the back of the dock is curved so that your fingers can reach the buttons easier. It made me appreciate the amount of work and detail that goes into engineering something like this. And it's also fun for me as a fan of Nintendo to see the ways that the cameras or other accessories have evolved. I'm not clueless, like obviously this is Nintendo propaganda that I just spent money to experience, but it is also really interesting as a fan of gaming to learn about. So there's a lot to like here, but here's the part you might have been waiting for. I've kind of purposely been ignoring the problems I had with Welcome Tour as I was going through it. Even if it's barely even meant to be a game, it isn't immune to criticism. My primary issue has less to do with the content of Welcome Tour, but the baffling structural choices made throughout the experience. You might have already heard that a few of the tech demos, the parts that are probably the most fun for people, are occasionally tied behind a missing accessory and therefore a paywall, because you need the matching accessory that is sold separately from the original Switch 2. Before I hopped in, I saw plenty of articles calling out the game for blocking completion behind buying the Switch 2 camera, the Pro controller, or a 4K TV. While I did get by using a generic USB webcam, and they're very clear that you can use generic cameras, I couldn't play the 4K TV or Pro controller demos. And it honestly sucks, I have to admit. I understand why they couldn't make these things work if you just genuinely don't have the point of the demo, but maybe they could have bundled this along with those accessories, sort of like Wii Play did with Wii remotes. Gating off content like this is a pretty bad look, especially when the console isn't exactly cheap from the get-go. But honestly, I wasn't expecting to complete this game 100% anyway, and I have a bigger problem with the stamps. The stamps prevent you from getting to the next area if you don't find every single one before you move on, but the podiums that you need to get to don't show up until you're standing right beside them. And so I spent a lot of time running around in circles trying to find where the last stamp was. Especially when you go to the inside of some parts, you can't tell what is supposed to be a piece. They're all just metal blocks. Eventually, I sort of had to learn where stamps typically get placed. It's a bit funny, right? Like imagine going to an art gallery and they don't let you proceed unless you've admired all the paintings. Please admire all art equally. A little hint desk or something at the front of the area would have been nice, but it is easy to just look this up online. Playing this game at launch though, there weren't many guides to really find. If I had to be fair though, I could see this game being absolutely mind-numbing for people who don't care. Take it or leave it, it is basically a tour of a bunch of accessories. So if you can't get behind that, no amount of mini games are going to convince you otherwise. So I think if you've looked at my gameplay so far, or you've watched the trailer for this thing, I think you already know if you want to play this or not. There's no extra thing here that will make it all worth it. So honestly, my only real thought after completing Welcome Tour was, why are people even caring about this? Some people wanted to have this as a pack-in, or they feel like it should be a pack-in, but would you even like it if you played it? I had a great time with Welcome Tour, but I personally feel like I'm in the minority of people that would even care about this. My favorite part was reading, so I don't know. Honestly, I can't even tell if real people are mad about this anyway. I don't really want to get into it, but sometimes when I see people online get mad at video game companies, I can't tell if they're serious. Like, don't buy it then. If you really don't like Welcome Tour for one reason or another and you're respectful about it, please leave a comment about it. I'd love to hear. Switch 2 Welcome Tour is practically boring on purpose, and so I could see why Nintendo wouldn't want to release this thing on the Switch, because it would get compared to Astro's Playroom almost immediately. And after playing it myself, I think it would be pretty disingenuous to say this has no value and it's not worth any money. It's clear that there's at least some level of effort put in. And let's not kid ourselves, Nintendo has charged a lot more for a lot less. So what's there left to say? I think in a few years' time, the Switch 2 Welcome Tour will be seen as this funny little demo game that Nintendo just pushed out and stubbornly put a price tag on. It just seems very niche and tailored to people who have been around video games long enough to care about how they're made. And I mean, come on, they made the Joy-Con 2 rumble and make a 1-up noise. That's gotta be at least a little cool. Of course, the biggest controversy with this thing is that there's a price at all. I see the business choices, I understand that angle, and it makes sense that anyone who would actually want to play this thing would be also willing to pay for it. It isn't this absurd cost that would prevent people with any interest from playing it, but it also is a calculated choice to have that cost at all. When I was playing it, I was thinking maybe it should have been bundled with the Switch 2, but the sections that feature accessories should have been bundled with those accessories. I think it would have made perfect sense to dial back the amount of content and then just give it to you as free bonuses with your accessories. Almost like a really cool interactive manual. I'm hoping some up-and-coming game developers or hardware designers can look at Welcome Tour and get some inspiration from it. Or maybe some people can look through this thing and, learn about how these things are actually made. There's a lot of content to go through, but it also isn't the longest running game ever. I can't really give it outstanding recommendations, but I think that if it seems up your alley, I would go for it. I think the worst case scenario is you get bored, but you learn something. With that said, I give Switch 2 Welcome Tour $10 out of 10. That joke would work better if I was American. Thanks for reaching the end of the video here. I'd love to hear if you've picked up a Switch 2 yet, and if you've been interested in playing Welcome Tour. I mostly cover retro games on this channel, but I have been dabbling with the Switch 2 because, it's new and I've been having a good time with it. I have way too many Switch 1 games too. I just thought we could have a fun conversation about this weird little tech demo. If you enjoyed this one, it would be awesome if you liked the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff in the future. Thanks again for making it to the end of the video, and we'll see you next time.